Good afternoon. I'm Dillon with the American Diabetes Awareness Group, and when I was told that I'd be coming and talking to a group of elementary students, I tried to think of the best way I could educate them about diabetes. And one way I thought is that during my presentation, I could embed them with a question that hopefully would stir their minds a little bit and get them curious about diabetes, in effort to keep them from one day getting diabetes themselves. And that one question is, would you prevent type 2 diabetes if it was possible? And I'm here to tell you that it is possible. And if you listen to me during this presentation, hopefully you'll be able to prevent yourself from getting diabetes down the road. Now, you may be wondering, what is diabetes? You possibly could have heard of it, but you might not be really sure about what it is. And basically, diabetes is a medical condition where sugar levels build up in your bloodstream and there's not enough insulin, hormone made by the pancreas. And the pancreas is about right here in your body, and it's part of the endocrine system. And there's not enough insulin to move sugar into your cells, where sugar is stored for energy. So your body has to get energy from your tissues, muscles, and organs, and basically you lose a lot of weight. Now here's a diagram to show what type 2 diabetes does to the body. First, the stomach converts food to glucose and moves it. And second, the glucose enters the bloodstream. And glucose is more commonly known as sugar. And so the pancreas produces insulin, but it's not effective enough. It's not the right kind. So the glucose is unable to enter the rest of your body effectively, and so the rest of that glucose keeps going through your bloodstream, and your blood sugar really increases, and that can cause you to get really hot and really restless and get headaches, and you get really thirsty. Now, also, you may be wondering, what happens to me if I have it? Like, what are the symptoms? One is blurred vision, and that's when a lot of fluid enters your eyes. Another one would be loss of feeling in your feet, and that has a lot to do with circulation. And you could end up getting a cut in your foot, and you have no idea. And so what can happen is it can keep bleeding, and then it can get infected, and possibly you end up having to get your foot amputated. There's also a high risk of stroke, heart attack, and arterial disease because of the increase in blood sugar and blood pressure and all that stuff. And you're also very sensitive to hot and cold, and that also has to do with your increase and decrease in blood sugar. There's also kidney damage, and that's because your kidneys are forced to filter a lot of blood, and so that they filter way too much blood, and they end up becoming damaged and can possibly lead to failure down the road. There's also gum disease, and that has to do with blood sugar, and also depression. And that's basically because you want your blood sugar to be at a certain level, but when it's not, you can end up becoming depressed. And there's also headaches, and that has to do with blood sugar as well. Different treatment possibilities are pills, and that's just to control the levels of your blood sugar. There's also artificial insulin, and that comes in a little glass bottle, and you take a syringe, and you take the syringe and the needle, and you stick it through a little white part in the top of the little glass bottle, and you pull out the amount of insulin that you need. And that's a whole nother topic about how much insulin you really want. And there's also blood sugar testing or blood glucose testing, and I'm actually going to demonstrate what that looks like. So you take something called a test meter, and then you take a little test strip like this, and you stick it into the front of the test strip, the test meter, and then eventually it will turn on, and you'll have to wait a second. And then eventually it says you're ready to go. So then you take this little finger pricking deal and you press it to the end of your finger, and then you press the button, and then what you have to do is you have to keep forcing the blood until it comes out. And then once you get enough, you can take the test meter, and you can touch your finger on the very end of the test strip, and then as of right now, it's about to give me a read on my blood sugar. It says my blood sugar is 106, and that's basically right where you want to be. So my pancreas is functioning normally. Also, there's possible weight loss surgery, and forgot to mention there's also possible transplants with your kidneys or your pancreas or your liver. And you know what you're probably thinking too. How do I know if I'm at risk? Am I at risk? So, you may be at risk if you're obese or overweight. If you find yourself having to use the restroom a lot. If you have extreme thirst, you're always thirsty. If you maybe have an increased appetite, you're hungry all the time, or you may find yourself losing a lot of weight. And I kind of explained how that's possible at the beginning of the presentation. Here's a few stats and facts. The number of children with type 2 has skyrocketed in the last 20 years. And that's probably because a lot of food these days, just the overall eating habit of America has gotten worse and worse, just with the increase of junk food and other substances like that. And 1 out of 3 children will develop type 2 unless they change their bad habits. So 1 out of 3 of you guys will more than likely develop type 2 diabetes. More than 80% of children with type 2 are either overweight, and 40% are clinically obese. And scientists found that there are certain fat cells within your body that give off chemicals that increase fat around the liver, which cause resistance to insulin. And that's been one of the most recent theories about how obese people are linked, or diabetes is linked to obese people. And this is what I really want you to pay attention to. This is kind of the question I gave you at the beginning of my presentation, and this is what I think is the most important part. And I really would like you guys to pay attention here, because this is big. Is how can you prevent type 2 diabetes? How can you keep yourself from getting it now or down the road? And there's only three main things, but they are huge. And the first one is watch what you eat. Stay away from the junk food. Instead of eating fried chicken, eat grilled chicken. Stay away from Doritos and Cheetos and stuff like that, because they're high in fat and high in cholesterol. Also, watch your weight. You can go online and you can kind of get an idea take your age limit, your age and your height, and try and figure out how much you should weigh. And if you find yourself above or below, what you want to do is you want to try and get back into that good level. And by doing that you can exercise and eat well. And exercising, like I said, if you exercise 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that will drastically decrease your chances of getting diabetes. And that can be anything from going and playing at the park, or playing basketball with your friends, or soccer, or anything like that. Any type of way to get your heart rate going for at least 30 minutes. And now this is my final thought to leave with you. Don't wait until it's too late to prevent yourself from getting diabetes. Start now. Change your eating habits now, and change anything that can possibly cause you to get diabetes down the road. And what I'd like you guys to do is when you go home, talk with your parents and talk to them about what you learned today, and hopefully you learned a lot. And hopefully you guys can plan certain things out with your parents, and maybe get a gym membership, or start buying healthier things at the grocery store, and cut out some of the bad stuff we talked about. You may not realize it now, but a lot of what you're doing to your body now can affect you down the road. So I hope that you you really take charge of your body, and you turn yourself around. Like I said before, it's too late. Hopefully you learned a lot, and I hope that you really think about this and think about yourself and get a new perspective about diabetes in yourself, and hopefully you can change yourself. Thanks for your time.